This sport is a young man's game, and suffering 2 KO losses in the same 6-month span is a sign that the sport is catching up with Volkanovski. Although it is true that Volk can absolutely still compete in this featherweight landscape and could potentially become a champion again, it would be for the best if Volk quit while he was still ahead, and people could remember his career as a whole fondly.
Yo, it's me again. A lot has happened in the MMA world since my last video, but it's not like my second most viewed video aged terribly since I've been gone. Oh wait. Yes, it's true. I can be wrong, but at the time I did not know that A, Ilia Topuria was going to move up to lightweight in search of an Islam Makhachev super fight, and B, the UFC was going to put together Volk versus Diego Lopez for the title, one of the easiest matchups for Alex in the short list of possible contenders. I also did not know that they were going to put together Volk versus Lopez 2 for Alex's very next fight after winning the belt back. But I guess if anyone in the sport deserves these little gimmies, it is Alex, and if we're being honest, at this level, no fight is truly a gimme, I understand that. But it is obvious that the UFC did not mind letting Alex hold on to the featherweight belt a little longer. Also, I know this video is extremely late and borderline irrelevant at this point, but I felt like, given the title of my Alexander Volkanovski video, I owe it to everyone to take a deeper dive into the career of Volkanovski since that last video ended. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and make sure you subscribe. I really want to start uploading more, and subscribe to my Substack as well. I want to start writing some deeper breakdowns over there. Okay, let's do it. On February 17th, 2024, Alexander Volkanovski would lose his featherweight championship to Ilia Topuria after getting knocked out cold in the second round. This would mark Volk's third loss in his last 4 fights, 2 of those losses being KOs to the 2 best fighters of the UFC's current generation. The general consensus afterwards was that this was a passing of the torch for the featherweight division. Volk was 35 in the Topuria fight, and history shows that winning a UFC title in the lower weight classes over the age of 35 is nearly impossible. With a youthful champion who is only going to get better while Volk is out of his prime, it did not seem likely we would see Alex winning in the cage again. And then this happened. Through a crazy course of events that included Belal Muhammad losing his welterweight title to Jack Della Maddalena, which prompted Islam to move up and vacate his lightweight championship, Ilia Topuria would vacate the featherweight strap to take on Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. Now the featherweight division has an empty throne, and it would only make sense to put Volkanovski in the mix for another shake at the title. Who his opponent was going to be would be a lot more interesting. A lot of people at the time were expecting Movsar Evloev to get his long-awaited chance at featherweight gold, but in honesty, the UFC just does not seem eager to give it to him. He was coming off a win against Aljamain Sterling, a former bantamweight champ, but the reality is he isn't the most exciting fighter in the world, and to date he still does not have a stoppage win in his UFC career. You also had another undefeated fighter in Lerone Murphy doing his thing, but once again he was not the most exciting fighter, and remember this is pre-spinning elbow KO against Aaron Pico, Lerone Murphy.
Pressure. So much pressure. Spinning attack!
So the most logical step for the UFC was to put in the exciting fan favorite, Diego Lopez. Lopez was generating a ton of hype at the time, getting big wins from Sadiq Youssef in under 90 seconds, Dan Ige, which is a fight he only took on hours' notice, and a big name in Brian Ortega. Lopez did present devastating threats to the aging Volk. Lopez has a slick grappling game with sneaky submissions, and a ton of power in his right hand that could be fight-ending if it landed on Alex. And remember, this is a Volkanovski that has lost his last 2 fights by knockout. The fight was set for UFC 314, and right away, the main criticisms of Lopez's game were being exposed. Volkanovski used his footwork to expose Lopez's lack of ring cutting and largely stay away from the devastating right hand. I did say largely, as Volk did get clipped a few times, including in the second round, which resulted in a knockdown. Everyone watching in the fight had that thought in the back of their head that we may see one of the featherweight GOATs get knocked out for a 3rd time in a row. but Volkanovski was able to get up, shake it off, and persevere, handily working Diego Lopez for the remaining 3 rounds and winning by unanimous decision, becoming a 2-time featherweight champion. Now, Alexander Volkanovski is the oldest featherweight champion in UFC history, so every featherweight contender was desperately gunning for the next title shot, despite it being, Alexander Volkanovski. Lerone Murphy, Movsar Evloev, and even John Silva at this point had legitimate shots at being the next contender. Silva would lose to Diego Lopez in Lopez's return to the cage after his title shot, knocking Silva out of the running. So now there were 2. Who was it going to be? Who was going to get the shot? Well, the final decision might just surprise you. It was Diego Lopez again. Once again, not too sure what this was about, and my best guess is that the UFC did this as a favor to Alex for just being a legend and giving him an easier title defense. But Volk would beat Lopez again in a very similar fashion, and now we're here. So what's next for Volkanovski? Well, the answer is obvious, but honestly, the UFC hates Movsar so much, I am not sure he's even going to get it, despite handing Murphy his first loss in a close title eliminator. But no matter what happens, it's very difficult to ever count Alexander Volkanovski out. And I'm very sorry I ever did. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I want to start uploading more, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.